Hello, I'm Gordon Lane, editor of CameraLabs.com. Welcome to the second part of my Canon EOS 5D Mark II video tour. This camera is packed with so many new features that I just couldn't do it justice in the normal 10-minute length of our standard videos. So in this second part, I'm better able to go into detail over the Mark II's live view facilities, its PC-based remote control software, and also giving you my verdict on this new full-frame DSLR. If you haven't already checked out part 1, I'd recommend watching that first, because in that video I'll show you all of the new features of the camera. I'll go over its controls and its design, and also show you several examples of its brand new 1080p movie mode. But if you've already seen that, it's time to get on with part 2 and the Mark II's live view facilities. Like all new Canon DSLRs, the 5D Mark II is of course equipped with live view facilities, and the implementation is fairly similar to the EOS 50D, although of course with some references to the movie mode. Indeed, the actual live view menu, as you can see here, is labelled live view movie function settings, so let's go inside and see how they work. Now, like all Canon EOS DSLRs to date, live view is actually disabled by default, so the first thing we're going to do is enable that by going into this menu and choosing stills only or stills plus movie. We'll go for that because this will allow us to take pictures or record movies. Next up, you get to choose the format of the actual screen information. Stills display, exposure simulation, which will allow you to see a live histogram, and movie display, which will actually show some transparent guidelines if you're filming in HD to allow you to better frame your shot. I'm going to go for exposure simulation. Now you're ready to go. Just press this button to the left of the viewfinder and you can see the actual live view in front of the camera. To prove that, I'll just wiggle my fingers in front. If you press the info button, you can overlay some shooting information. Press it again, you can see things like the amount of time remaining should you actually start recording a movie now. Press it once more, and because we've got exposure simulation, we also get a live histogram in the top right corner. You can also overlay various grids, although this is in the menu. If I go into here, I can go for the grid display. We'll go for that option 1, exit the menu, and you'll now see this grid. Again, if I put my fingers in front of it, you'll see that grid more clearly. Now I'm going to show you the various autofocus options in live view. I'll just center this frame first. Now we're in quick mode. I'll give you a demonstration of how that works. I'll press the AF on button to autofocus. Now what happened there was the mirror flipped down to take an AF reading, and you heard it double beep to confirm that, and then the mirror flipped back open again to continue live view. I'll show you that once more. So there's obviously some noise and some interruption to the image, but it is fairly quick. Now the 5D Mark II also features contrast-based autofocusing options, and that's called live mode, so I'm going to change it there, and also just quickly mention there that there's a face detection option too. So we'll go into live mode and return to that live view again. Now when I press the AF on button, watch what happens. Now that was fairly quick because it was already focused on that point, so let's make it slightly more difficult and move this AF area to a different point on the image. This is one of the great benefits of a contrast-based system. You can move this frame to focus wherever you want. So let's try again. Now, as you saw that time, it took several seconds to lock onto the focusing point, although of course it was also very quiet and there's no interruption to the image. One of the other things you can do is magnify this area by 5 or 10 times. Here we are at 5 times and now at 10 times, and this gives you a really accurate representation of what the sensor is actually going to capture. So we can now go into manual focus, and if I turn the manual focusing ring, you can see that you can very precisely get that focusing spot on. This is a very useful facility to have. Like previous Canon DSLRs with live view, the 5D Mark II comes with software that allows you to fully remote control it over a USB cable using your PC or Mac. I'm running the EOS utility here under Windows Vista, and as before you can configure it to record the images direct to your hard disk. Here it's showing the amount of images remaining. As you can see, almost 4,000 pictures there, so plenty of capacity. And then when you're ready to take the picture, you just press this button to the right, and the picture is transferred directly to whichever folder you've specified. Now, as before, you can adjust various settings that don't involve a physical turn of a dial or a flick of a switch. So I can right click this here and adjust the aperture, perhaps increase the sensitivity, and maybe set the quality from large to raw plus large. And then again, when you're ready to take the picture, just press this button. Now, as before, one of the most exciting things about using this software is the ability to see a live view of the picture actually on your computer monitor. So to do that, I'm going to have a look at the lower area of this window and click on Remote Live View Shooting. And as I do that, I'm going to zoom the camcorder out so you can get a better view of this picture that's now appeared on my monitor. Now, as before, you can actually use these controls on the right here to adjust the focus of the image. And you can get a pretty good indication of how that looks. You can also activate the autofocus mode. I've got it on live mode, which is the contrast-based system. If I click this here, the camera will now autofocus. And as before, that will take a couple of seconds, the green square indicating that it's now nice and sharp. Now, because this is the 5D Mark II, you can of course also record video from this screen. You'll notice in the bottom corner here a play button and also an icon here. If I click that, it will enable the video mode. Now if I press the red button here, I can start recording video footage. Unfortunately though, this isn't recorded direct to your computer's hard disk. This is recorded onto the camera's memory card instead. As before, you can magnify this view for a closer look. If I press the magnify button here, you can see this close-up view, again showing this mountain area here, and this allows you to far more precisely adjust that focus if you prefer until you get it spot on. Canon's EOS 5D Mark II is one of the most powerful, feature-packed and capable DSLRs we've ever tested at cameralabs.com. And it also represents a significant upgrade over its predecessor. But that shouldn't be entirely surprising. After all, 3 years have passed since the original 5D, and a lot has changed in the camera industry since then. So while the body is essentially the same as its predecessor, and the autofocus system remains 9 points, almost everything else about this camera has been changed, upgraded or improved in some respect. So it's a significant upgrade for existing owners of the 5D. But it's not all good news for the Mark II. One of its biggest downsides is the continuous shooting speed. This may have been accelerated to 3.9 frames per second, but that's still not quite fast enough to capture serious action sequences. People who are interested in comparing specifications will also know that this camera still doesn't have 100% viewfinder coverage, or more than 9 autofocus points. Although to be fair, anything better than that in Canon's range is normally reserved for its top-end 1D series. If you're a regular visitor to various forums, you'll also have heard about the black dot problem facing early models of the 5D Mark II. Now if you head on over to cameralabs.com, you'll see an updated report on that in our full review of this camera, so hopefully by the time you watch this video it won't be an issue anymore, but it is definitely worth checking to see if that's going to affect your photos. Now of course the biggest change between this and its predecessor is the marketplace itself. When the 5D was originally launched, it really didn't have any rivals, but now the Mark II enters a market with 2 big rivals in the form of Sony's A900 and Nikon's D700. Now each of these have got compelling pros and cons, and they also look and feel very different in your hands. So it's very important, if you're thinking of buying a full-frame DSLR like this, to pick them all up in person and try them for yourself. Then it's very important to compare the features and discover which one is going to be best for you. And to help you do that, we've fully compared all of those features and specifications at cameralabs.com. We've also directly compared the image quality so you can see which one is going to work out best for you. So if you're in the market for an affordable full-frame DSLR, then head on over to cameralabs.com. There you'll find our full review of the Canon EOS 5D Mark II.